This morning, a terrible situation occurred in Tampa Bay Buccaneers training camp. This is something that happens at every training camp at some point. This is something that happens in football. You just have to hope, A, that it's not career ending, and B, that it isn't like the most important parts of your team. Now, that sounds incredibly shallow, but that's the name of the game in the NFL. The injury bug will hit every single team. It's who it hits and how deep are you in that position. Ryan Jensen down in a huddle screaming this morning in training camp practice, the same practice that we saw videos of Tom Brady throwing great balls to Julio. Julio looks explosive coming out of his cuts, looks excited. He's not the one guy. He's going to be like 3-guy, 4-guy. Who knows what they're going to do. Camp, it looked like it was going swimmingly. Ryan Jensen, though, ends up tearing his ACL. I don't know. That's quite hurt his knee. Right. Hurt his knee. You can put that tweet back up there, Mitt. Yeah. Bucs center Ryan Jensen just went down. A golf cart came out to get him, and all teammates huddled around him. He's heading to the training room. Todd Bowles, that's from Jenna Lane. Todd Bowles, head coach of Tampa Bay Buccaneers, came out in his press conference and said it was a knee injury. I don't want to say. I mean, I guess I just kind of said an ACL. That's what kind of everybody just assumes when something like this happens. Ryan Jensen has been a pretty pivotal part of that Tampa Bay Buccaneers team. Not only as a tone setter, as a great player, he made the Pro Bowl, All-Pro. He just came back because Tom Brady basically said, hey, need you back. That is a devastating loss for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We hope it is something that we don't assume it is. We hope it's just a couple weeks, maybe a tweak, maybe something happened. But anytime a big, bad, tough motherfucker like Jensen in the offensive line ends up going down, he's heard to be screaming, right? I think people said, and the entire team huddles around and that whole thing happens. You have to obviously assume the worst, and I hate that for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, AQ Shipley will join us in about an hour, friend of the program, former backup center for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, knows Jensen very well, and also has been training Robert Hainsey out of Notre Dame, who's the backup center for the Buccaneers in Arizona all offseason. Can't wait to chat with him about the whole situation, but this fucking stinks. The center, obviously the leader of the offensive line, very important. We're day 2 of training camp. This is fucking a bummer.
Yeah, and you mentioned it earlier. Like, this is why all the fodder that we've been talking about doesn't mean shit, because stuff like this happens, during training camp where a team kind of completely changes. And I don't know, the Bucs are probably going to be fine. They still have Brady and all those weapons, but Jensen's such a massive part of that O-line. Like, that's a huge hole that they have to fill. But, I mean, if anybody can get the backup ready, it's AQ Shipley.
AQ Shipley been a center for like 10 different teams, been around. He got into coaching. He was coaching this guy one-on-one basically all offseason. So I don't want to say like perfect timing for Bob Hainsey to get an opportunity, but it feels like Bob Hainsey is probably more prepared than he's ever been for this. Stinks about Jensen, all-pro talent. Definitely a leader, beloved, I think, by fucking everybody in Tampa Bay, not only in the roster, in the locker room, but also in the city. Bob Hainsey, who Tristan Wirfs, that's how he called him, I guess, in his press conference. I think he's ready. And this is the next man up thing that you don't expect to happen. But here we are, day 2 or day 3 of training camp, and your stud probably out until we get confirmation, but probably out for a bit. Main story, Ryan Jensen goes down. Sounded bad. Todd Bowles said it's a knee injury. What are your early expectations from being boots on the ground, Rick Stroud?
It doesn't look or sound good. It's serious when not only do they bring the golf cart off, for the left knee injury, but then the entire team, not just the offensive lineman, walks up to console Ryan Jensen. So they say it's going to be a couple days, before they know MRIs and swelling and things like this. But the initial look and feel and just the somber tone of everything doesn't sound great. And he's been a very durable player. He started 81 games, I think, in his career since he became a starter. Really hasn't missed much time. He's played 97% of the snaps here. So when you consider, Pat, that this was the first guy the Bucs signed after Tom Brady decided to unretire, that's not a coincidence. Tom Brady, is very important to him who snaps the ball. And right now, it's not Ryan Jensen.
Okay, so obviously we're all fucking bummed to hear that in training camp. That is the NFL has that. The NFL has that. You just got to hope it's not for you. He's like leader, too. Big-time leader, not only in the locker room, but all of the city loves Ryan Jensen, right? He's beloved by everybody.
He really is, and he's one of the characters of the game. You see the flaming red hair, and he pushes guys over the pile, and he'll get a penalty or two, but really a colorful guy that, is a make-it story in the NFL, drafted very low out of Pueblo. And so everybody loves Ryan Jensen. And the fact that they re-signed him to a 3-year deal at 31 years old tells you how much they're counting on him to play in what is, maybe Tom Brady's last dance here in Tampa.
Bob Hainsey, now out of Notre Dame, is the backup center. He is, I mean, obviously we're hoping that it's not as serious as it sounded and looked for Ryan Jensen, but I think brains will assume that this is going to be a bit for Ryan Jensen before he comes back. Bob Hainsey now, it is his job. Tristan Wirfs, very confident, comfortable. We know from following along with our friend AQ Shipley, he's been training in Phoenix all offseason with AQ. He might be, he might be more ready than he's ever been to do this, even though he never could have expected or wanted this role. How has the team responded? And have you got any words about Bob Hainsey from any of the players or coaches on what they expect from him going forward?
Yeah, we were talking to Tristan Wirfs, and Hainsey has really worked hard in the offseason. He's added some weight. They were trying to put him in the left guard mix with guys like Aaron Stinney and Luke Godeke. So now, of course, he steps into the center position. It's a big responsibility. He just hasn't played there. And so, you have an unknown commodity, but they like the way he's developed, and he's going to get the first bite of the apple. I mean, he's going to get a chance to go out there and prove what he can do. But, they're not in pads until Monday. This is unfortunate. It was supposed to be a non-contact drill. Aaron Stinney looked like he pushed Logan Hall on an inside rush into Jensen, and it's just one of those things that shouldn't happen this time of year.
Who pushed the person? Is that a starter?
Yeah, I think it was Aaron Stinney, if I'm not mistaken, yeah.
Oh, can't have it. That's a veteran team, too. That shit does that. Yeah, that you don't expect that at all. Man, what a bummer. Ryan Jensen, former offensive lineman, peer of yours. I assume a guy you work very close with whenever you're down in Tampa on that Super Bowl run. You subbed in, I think, a couple games for him whenever he got injured. He came back. You have massive respect for him. I know that. Non-contact drills this morning. Couple days into training camp, still in phase 3, not even all the way in there. It feels like Jensen's out for the fucking season. What a bummer. What a terrible thing. And when something like this happens, how does it affect the rest of the offensive line, you think, AQ?
Yeah, it's such a tough thing. I mean, in my opinion, he's obviously a top 10 lineman in this league. I think he's one of the top 2 centers in this league. And, you and I have spoke about this. I think you spoke about this plenty of times. And beyond what he does physically for that team, he's the tone setter. I mean, he's the absolute tone setter. You show up to a 1 o'clock game and you're playing a team that you're supposed to beat, and there's no energy during warm-ups. We've all been there, right? You've all felt it.
Yeah.
He's the guy that brings it. He's gonna get you can call it a late hit. You can do whatever. He's gonna start something after a play. He's gonna get that tone flipped around to get those guys rolling. So he brings so much to that team, and it's such a, if it does end up being a year-long thing, I mean, that's such a big blow to that team, because he brings so much more than what he is already as a top 2 center physically to that locker room.
AQ, for his backup who comes in, I assume that that guy.
Bob Hainsey.
What's his name?
Bob Hainsey. AQ's been training him the last 3 months.
AQ, how will teams early in the year test that guy? We know he's gonna be snapping the ball to Tom Brady. I would assume he may be a little bit anxious early. How do you test the center to see if he has it?
Yeah, so you see it a lot, right? You see teams that they'll start running a bunch of games inside, right? They'll start running a bunch of double barrel to see how you kind of handle the 2 linebackers up the A gap. They'll cover you down 5 down to make everybody go one-on-one, see if he can hold up one-on-one, right? There's going to be a couple of those different little instances or nuances amongst defensive coordinators that are going to try and test him and see what he can do, see if he can pick up all these things. You're going to send a couple, a Will Free safety, a Sam Strong safety, see if he can get the guys on the right pickup, right? There's going to be different tests that teams that'll send at him. But listen, I mean, this guy's, I think he's awesome. I mean, I trained him for 4 weeks in the spring. I trained him for 4 weeks this summer. Okay. And mentally, he's a year 10 guy mentally already. And, he's just got to get the reps physically in there at center. I mean, he's a Notre Dame guy. You guys all know the way Notre Dame linemen come into this league ready to kind of play. So he's more than capable to kind of step in and do what he has to do. And, it's a shame what happened to Jensen, but, I think a lot of guys are probably looking forward to seeing what he can do as well.
Okay, is Tom Brady the one calling out the blitzes, or is center in that offense doing it?
It's a little bit of both, right? I mean, Tom, for as many years, he's so smart. He kind of controls the whole thing. The center's doing a lot of the stuff, and, but Tom always has, kind of trump power. I mean, he's, there's a handful of quarterbacks that kind of have that ability, that veto power. I think him, Drew, Peyton, kind of all those guys, the super smart, cerebral guys. they always have that ability where they're kind of the final answer.
Trump card, you meant?
So what I said? What did I say?
You said Trump power.
Yeah, like Donald.
Trump
All right,
card.
grammar police over here.
It's not grammar police, just because there's people probably tweeting you immediately.
Oh, you like Trump?
Hey, bald white.
We're not allowed to mention that word anymore.
Well, it's a Trump card. It's the thing that's been said since the beginning of time. So, I mean, there's literally that's.
What for you, January 6th? Thank you.
All right. Hey, that's AJ's birthday.
I was in San Diego.
That's AJ's birthday. That's AJ's birthday, by the way, January.
That's what I was asking.
Heck of a birthday party.
Yeah. Jesus.
Up there in D.C. at a heck of a birthday party. Huh?
I was in Columbus.
Oh, yeah,
Oh, yeah, AJ.
I'm sure you were.